Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Computing outside, classic empire, head to head, down to the line. Cloud computing wins the Preakness.
Buongiorno, everybody. Day 3 of Past the Wire's Saratoga Today, brought to you by our friends at Amwager and Zilla Racing Stables. Going into the third day, the first Saturday, let's start by saying a prayer for Luis Cardenas, who went down in the last race yesterday in a spill that looked pretty nasty. It's so hard to tell with those spills. You know, some of them look terrible and they wind up not so terrible. Some of them don't look that bad and they wind up horrible. This one was bad. We lost a horse, and Luis, went down pretty hard. So let's say a prayer for everyone involved and affected. It's the worst part of the game. We all know that. Just tragic, and we hate to see it. But we keep racing. We love the sport. We try and make it as safe and as as good as it could be, but these things just unfortunately sometimes happen, as they do in many other areas of life as well, and other sports as well. But racing is a dangerous game, and we know that when we play it. And you got to give a shout out to these riders and the horses. I mean, the horses really don't have a lot of say in it. We know, the good, healthy ones love to run, and they're bred to do that. But riders, exercise riders and jockeys get out there every day, put it all on the line. It's a much tougher life than people realize. Those guys and gals, they're up early in the morning working horses. They've got to watch every calorie and every pound. It's rough on the kidneys. It's rough on the system. Long days, no days off, no guarantees. You get hurt, you lose business. It's just a really tough, grinding life. And the stars make a lot of money and get a lot of glory, but a lot of guys work just as hard and just really grind it out, and they all put their lives on the line. You got 1,000-pound animals that guys 110 pounds are trying to steer, going really fast, close quarters, split-second decisions. It's rough. I mean, you really, those guys pound for pound are very, very tough athletes and gals. And let's say a prayer for Luis, all the other riders. Stay safe. God be with them. And let's move on to the races. There was a lot of talk the beginning of Saratoga. Del Mar opened yesterday about, which tracks people prefer. East Coast bias, West Coast bias, whatever. I love them both. Saratoga by day, Del Mar by night. Can't beat it. Del Mar on the beach, Saratoga upstate in the beautiful region of the Adirondack Mountains. Can't beat either one. But one thing I will say, Del Mar has a very distinct advantage in, and that's weather. It's beautiful out there most of the time, usually for that whole meet. You get 1 or 2 days of rain, that's a lot. Saratoga, no, another story. Sometimes it gets cold, and sometimes you get some rain. And when you get rain up there, you get rain. Today the forecast is for rain. I checked with both my phone and the Google Assistant, and they both said showers are very, very likely. Flood watch is in effect, so that means they could be pretty strong. Radar looks like they're coming. So that makes handicapping in Saratoga on those kind of days very, very, very challenging. That's the bad news about today's card. The good news is I've got an opinion, my strongest opinion of the meet thus far, and I'm okay whether it rains or not. So stay tuned. We'll get to that in a minute. But what I want to talk about for a minute prior to that is track biases. I've done some videos on this that you could find on Past the Wire or the YouTube channel Past the Wire TV, and I've written some articles on it, and I think it's important for a lot of people to understand. Saratoga, when it rains, a certain type of track bias does develop quite often. And there are two types that develop at Saratoga often, and I'll get to those momentarily. But what I wanted to say is it's imperative that people differentiate a true bias from a false bias. Just off the top of my head, going back to the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, everybody thought that the track was speed biased, and you 2-3 races into the card, and even the people the analysts on TV are saying, "Oh, you got to be on the front to win. You got to be on the front to win." Was not true. Okay, you didn't have to be on the front to win. The track at the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland was extremely fast, but it was not speed favoring. It was an honest racetrack, and you could win from anywhere. And if you go to the charts and look at them closely, you'll see that I'm 100% correct in that. And anybody who thinks that track was speed biased, it's just wrong. It wasn't. It happens a lot, especially on the big days. You'll see people right away jumping on that bandwagon. Oh, you got to be on the lead to win, or oh, you can't be on the lead to win. But it's usually speed where they focus on that bias and think you have to be on the front end to win. First off, it takes a good number of races to form an opinion on whether or not there's a bias. How many times do you think, oh, you got to be on the front to win, and everybody's thinking there's a speed bias, and all of a sudden a horse comes blown by the field from far back. It's because it really wasn't, either it changed or it wasn't a bias, and usually it wasn't a bias. And it can change during the card, but usually they hold up pretty well unless the conditions and the weather are changing during the course of the day. When there's a true speed bias, horses win on the front that would not have won had there not been a bias. They're aided by the track. Same thing with closers. Horses come off the pace that wouldn't have got up on but it's a closer's track, so they do. But if a horse was supposed to win, or is the only speed, or gets out by themselves, people are too quick to label that a bias. It isn't. You've got to be careful with that, because if you bet according to bias, and it's a good thing to do because you want every edge that you can get. You want to take advantage of any slight angle or edge you can get. You've got to make sure whether it's a true or false bias. And there's certain tests and things that you can do during the card. And like I said, there's articles on Past the Wire about it that you could look at and get a better idea about how I view them. And you can make a lot of money betting horses that ran well against a bias, or betting against horses that were aided by a true bias. The biases at Saratoga, especially when it rains, play one of two ways. It either becomes all speed or all closes down the crown of the track. And you watch a couple of races, and once you determine it's a true, not a false bias, you kind of know which one it is. And if you can find those horses that are going to be in those positions, you can take advantage of it. So I just wanted to say that because today's the first day. It looks like we're going to get some serious rain during the card, or possibly serious rain during the card. And, that can, create a real bias as opposed to a fake one, or it could have people jumping on the fake bandwagon pretty early. We'll talk about a couple of races real quick on the card, a couple of spots that, caught my eye. And then I'll get to the one that I like a lot, which happens to be in the last race, and that's going to be my first big punch of the meet. But what I thought it was a good card. I'm a little disappointed it rained, or it's going to rain. But Saratoga, you've got to factor that in. It's just part of the equation over there. So In the second race today, there's a big price horse, the Great Dansky, who's 20 to 1 on a morning line. Probably be every bit of that, maybe 25 or 30 to 1. Horse does have a little bit of a cheap look in here, to him. He looks a little cheap for these, and he's got the rail with Manny Franco, which is going to be a little tough to overcome. I mean, I'd like him a lot better if he was on the outside, but he does have a shot in there. I think he's sitting on a good race. I like the fact that they protected him running, even though they claimed him for cheap, I think 10,000 or something like that. Yeah, I like the fact that they're protecting him in a starter for 50,000, or a horse doesn't run for 50,000 or less. That's a vote of confidence. If he goes, doesn't scratch and goes from there, big price and not the worst bomb in the world. I think he's sitting on a big run. Again, I would like it better if he wasn't bogged down on the rail, but let's see if Manny can work out a trip and give him a shot to run well. I think he can definitely outperform his odds. Third race is a mile on the turf. Two things that I wanted to say. I thought the 3 Amalfi Princess was a very generous 8 to 1 on the morning line, and I thought that, interestingly, she had a shot whether it was on the turf or whether they take it off the turf. So I think she's really live in there. Even with the main track onlys getting in, if they take it off the turf, I think she's got a shot, a real shot. She's putting blinkers on. I think she'll handle the off going. If it's off by then, we'll see. When we do these shows early, we just, we don't know the weather. We just know the forecast. The other thing that I thought was interesting in that race, and there's some nice horses in there, but Magisterium is off an Orlando Note of Claim for Barry Ostringer, who's been around for a long time, for $62,500. That's a big claim for Orlando. It's a big claim for anybody, that number. I claimed a horse for $62,500 years ago off Alan Jerkins, me and Peter Walder. It was the one horse that Peter and I took, because we had horses together for a couple of years back then. The one horse that we didn't do any good with was the most expensive claim we ever made, which was a horse named Am Flippy from Alan Jerkins, Hobo Farm, for $62,500. We didn't do any good with her, but we did a lot of good with a lot of other ones, so it made up for it. But I thought that claiming from a guy like Christophe Clement is dangerous, because I don't think he gives anything away, and I think he spots his horses expertly. But they went in for this horse. I think she's an honest horse. I think she's a good claim, and I think if it stays on the turf, she's very, very live. She's 10 to 1 on the morning line, and I think she's got a big shot. I don't want to get too involved in the other races. Like I said, we don't know the weather, but I'll move to the Sanford. I've got a little bit of an opinion there. Now, again, the weather is going to be a factor. Witt ran huge. A morning line favorite, probably the likely favorite, Pletcher's horse for Rapoli, who the word was out on first time out, broke terrible, won anyway out in the middle of the track. Going short at Belmont, not the easiest thing to do. Impressive race for sure. Going to get a lot of money. There's plenty of speed in there, but the horse that I like, especially if the track is playing fair, is Wesley Ward's horse, the 9, Headline Report. 5 to 1 on the morning line. Should get that. Should be the third or fourth choice for sure. Horse by Gormley, who I think is going to be a really good sire. I like the horse whether it rains or not. And, there's a lot of speed in there, and it looks like, he went, on the front end in his win at Keeneland. And I get that. But, Johnny rode, he took a lot of money that day, which is a good sign, although Wesley gets bet off the board at Keeneland, anyway. But Johnny rode this horse very confident, like he knew he had a nice one in him. And it's hard to tell when you've got a bunch of 2-year-olds that a lot of them won on the lead first time out, knowing who can actually sit. That takes years of watching races and just an eye. I believe that this horse can sit if Johnny elects to do that, and he's drawn perfectly on the outside to do that. So I like Headline Report. I think he's got a big shot to win the Sanford today. I also think it's the kind of race that would not shock me, especially if it rains a lot, that falls apart and something crazy happens late. Dallas Stewart's got a horse in there with John Court, old guy. I think he's 60 years old. Veteran, savvy rider, been around a long time. Was really, really good when he was in his prime, underrated, still very capable. And this race can fall apart, and we all know that Dallas Stewart pops at big prices in tough spots. So I think he's one to watch. Especially, we'll emphasize, if the track does wind up playing muddy, closes down the crown of the track. Look out. In the Diana, assuming it stays on the turf, I didn't have a huge opinion there. I thought Summer Romance was going to be dangerous on the front end if they let her go. I know the stablemate beat her at the other Appleby horse beat her last time out. I think she can turn the tables on her. Pocket Square, I think, can improve. Lemeister, I think, is very dangerous. But, you know, it's going to depend, I think, on who likes to give in the ground, which they're probably going to have. The horse I like the best today, and where I'm going to take my first serious shot for the meet, is in the last race. I love the 7 Ducal. 7-2 on the morning line. I believe we'll get that. You know, there's a couple of horses in there going to take money. Englehart's horse got a big figure last time out. He's probably going to take a lot of money. I really liked Ducal's debut. Showed me a lot. Showed me he's got some fight. He's got some ability. He's got some toughness. Drawn into 7-hole on the outside. Think he's going to run a really big race and can win the nightcap. And that's going to be my shot. You got Mott's horse going to take money. Jerkin's horse is going to take money. So hopefully the price is fair, and he gets the right trip. I'm really high on him winning the last race today, and I'm gonna try and make it count, because those of you that follow me and know me know I go hard. That's it. I play a certain way. I believe that I want to cash less tickets but win more money, which means I don't spread, I don't reverse, I don't fish. I bet my opinion, and when I'm right, I want to make it count. And if you do that, you can erase a lot of losses when you are right. We're running a little long today, covered a lot. One last thought I will give. The Haskell is today. Interesting race. You've got Hot Rod Charlie, you got Mandaloon, you got the Midnight Bourbon, Asmussen's horse, and you got Following Sea, who I think, you know, people use that word freak. Any horse runs, you know, off the screen or a real fast time, they love to throw that word around. I'm not ready to call Following Sea a freak. I did do a write-up on Amwager about my thoughts on the Haskell. Also going to do it in tracking trips. I like Following Sea a lot today. He's being asked to do an awful lot to stretch out from a couple of sprints into a mile and an eighth against these kind of horses. But he's got the rail. They've got whip restrictions over there. I can't imagine Joel Rosario doesn't put him right on a lead. You can't beat what you can't catch. I think he's just too fast for them to run down. They're going to run him off their heels. He's a run happy. And even being a run happy, which screams sprint, Pletcher puts him from a non-winner or one allowance into the Haskell. Big vote of confidence. Could be a start 3-year-old going forward. I really believe that. I think he could win the Haskell, and I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe even comes back into Travers. I think it very, very possible and actually likely. I may look crazy at the end of the day if he gets inhaled or just can't get that distance, or we may look like we know what we're talking about. So that'll be interesting to see. But I like Following Sea a lot. Day 4 tomorrow, Sunday. Then we get a couple days off, and we'll be back with more. Hope you enjoy the shows. Hope we get hot sooner than later. But, you know, the one thing, starting off a little cool at Saratoga is okay, because you know it's going to turn. And it's better to start cooler and end hotter than the other way around. So let's hope we start at least getting some home today. We had that, we liked that Smile Brian a little bit when the Zilla won that incredible bob, which is still the bob of the meet. But let's see what happens with the ones we talked about today, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Ciao for now. Hope you enjoyed the show. Nobody does it better.
Cloud computing outside.